Do you know where the majority of your risk, work, and time is going to be and what drives it? Chances are, if you haven't done a modernization, you don't. And even if you have, we understand that like a small percentage of your customers typically drives it, but why and what can you do about it? And that's why I developed this equation and tool. I want to walk you through it because what you're going to find is that there are four things I've identified that really drive that risk, work, and adoption timelines. So they basically start out with complexity. How difficult is this thing? How much work is required to build out the capabilities? But it's also the uniqueness. And so when you think about the large segment, right, you have tons of customization. So each customer needs to be treated as a segment of one. So it's not, when you're talking about enterprise, you're large, it's not just one segment. It's really like however many customers you have, particularly if they're highly customized. So that complexity times uniqueness, right? Huge driver. Now you add on top of that uncertainty is like, how well do you know? Because if you don't know, you're going to spend a lot of time doing the discovery up front, or you're going to be surprised and have to do rework. And there's all this, again, a lot of times, particularly your largest older customers, are archaeological digs filled with surprises. And then adoption, customer adoption. How much work and effort is it going to take for them? Because one thing for you to build out all the capabilities that they need, it's another thing for them to adopt it. And if it requires work on their part, well, they may not be nearly as motivated as you are. So that can add years to the adoption before you migrate and are able to retire the systems. So let's walk through how this plays out by segment. So I basically broke four segments: small customers, and basically, one from complexity, one's all the way across. And so this company has 1,000 customers. So it's basically 1,000 points. Now, what you see, right? Most customers, small percentage of the work. Now we got these medium customers, again, a little bit more complex. They're still not unique. You can basically, whatever you build for one, you can deploy across everyone else. It's gonna be some work for adoption, training, who knows. And again, this is just to play with. These are not designed to be specific hours, days, months. They're just to give you some sense of how this stuff plays out and where to look. And now let's look at your large customers. They are, right? Suddenly complexity jumps. We're going to call it a 5, and their uniqueness, because you've done a lot of customization. It's a 4, but it's not huge. And then there's some uncertainty. We actually know what we did because all those things aren't documented. And then there's work because they need to. Now look, these 20 customers, a small sliver, right, suddenly drawing, like over 40% of the work, right? And again, it's 30%, 50%, it's irrelevant. The point is you see like how much work is going to be required and where your risk and complexity is and how this is going to drive so much of your timelines. Now let's look at your King Kong customers, those few customers that are just dwarf everybody else, the Walmarts, the Targets, the Lowe's of the world, right? And the complexity jumps to an 8, and the uniqueness, right? There's so much customers, 7, and they're really archaeological digs. We don't really know what we've done, so that's uncertainty 8. And the adoption, there's going to be a ton of work on their side. So suddenly, like these 3 customers, like there's as much complexity, risk, work, time is going to be required for these as everybody else. Because it doesn't matter if you've developed something and only one customer use it or 1,000 customers, it's still the same level of work. And again, the goal here is not to give you an exact number. It's to help you identify where your work, risk, complexity is. What are some of the things that will drive that? So now, as you think about from a development perspective, Where do you need to focus your effort? What, can you reduce that uncertainty? Can you do that, some discovery and then, are there things that you can do to minimize the amount of work your customer does to reduce your adoption? Or as you're building things, how can you avoid the uniqueness? Are the things that you can do to, more standardize, etc. This is also really good to think about before you bring on customers and before you do that customization, because eventually you're going to have to retire them. And that's where the pain really shows up. So hopefully you found this of some value. Check it out. And again, this is stuff that I've experienced, I've seen, and I can help you think through this and how do you tackle this? How do you reduce that complexity? How do you plan for it? So reach out and I'll be happy to help.